Hey everybody. This week I have this glass bowl that I found in a thrift store. I think it was a Habitat for Humanity, and I thought, oh, that would be neat to make a pedestal for it. Make it like a fruit bowl with a glass top. And so my audio didn't record properly during this first part, and I apologize. I found these Magnolia tree seed pods laying underneath the tree at Walmart. So grabbed them, picked them up, and tried a stabilizing method that a friend of mine on Instagram had told me about, which is mixing 50-50 your resin with acetone and letting it soak up in there really good, pulling it out, of course putting it in a glass jar, and then allowing it to dry. And it worked pretty well. So I decided I was going to use it for this project. I had in mind a really neat idea. So this is a piece of cherry that a viewer sent me, and I'm throwing those seed pods in there on top. I have a mint, and the link to these colors are in the description below. They're labeled as soap mica powders. They're all mica powders. There's no soap in them. It's just the coloring for soap or candles or whatever else. I'm going to do a pearl and mint with the interference violet. I'm going to put with the pearl, and interference blue I'm going to put with the mint. I'm using the Total Boat High Performance. It's dripping on me. With the slow hardener. It's a 2-to-1. That was fun. This was my first pour. I didn't record the second pour. It was the same exact colors and about the same exact mix. So I'm just going to show how I make my waste blocks. I have scrap pieces of like plywood and cabinet wood that I get from a local cabinet manufacturer, and so I just cut a piece of it, pinch it in between the centers, and make a tenon on it, turn it around, flatten it out so that a way I can have something nice and flat to glue on. If I could salvage these, I do, because then it beats having to make one for every single project each time. But they're just, you can make them out of scrap, whatever, scrap anything. I used Starbond to get it initially stuck on there, and then just hot glue the heck out of it onto there. Measuring the bottom of the bowl had like this tenon foot kind of already, so I thought that would be really nice and convenient. So when I glue it in, it'll have extra stability, something that it sits into versus just gluing two flat pieces together. So that's another reason why I picked up that bowl. That resin coming off there when you use your bowl gouge and it likes to chip. Oh, it tore my hand up, but anyways, no big deal. So I'm just shaping it, trying to, one, get established the bottom first, and then decide what I'm going to do as for design. I did draw a little sketch as to how I wanted to shape it, a little bit, what I had in mind. Didn't really stick to the plan. Usually I kind of deviate from them anyway and just go with whatever shows up in the resin, because you're not quite sure how this is all going to sit and look as you cut, and so I'm just keep in mind of how those seed pods are in there, and how that wood stands out. In my mind, I wanted mostly the wood at the bottom to show, and as it came into the seed pods, the resin would be more pronounced. So it did turn out very close to what I had in mind, so I'm pleased with it. Stabilizing the seed pods really did help with cutting them. There was some areas where the negative rake scraper just kind of frayed them up a little bit, but once I got past a certain point in the seed pod, it stopped doing that. So I will do a video separately on just stabilizing some things that way. James, he's on an Instagram as Stitchin' James. He has amazing stuff, and he's the one who told me about that trick with the acetone and resin mixed 50-50. Make sure you mix it in a glass or metal. I chose to do glass because, one, I had a glass jar that was big enough to put the seed pods in. And then you just let them soak in there for a while. I probably left them in there for like 3 or 4 hours, and then pulled them out, put them on a paper towel, and let them dry. And it took probably about 2 or 3 days because I used the thick set, slow set, the 3-to-1 resin with that particular method. And it really worked well. It doesn't stabilize like a vacuum chamber would, but at least it kept, it stiffened those seed pods and all those air pockets and everything in there. They weren't filled, but they were at least coated in resin, so when I did another pour, it didn't just absorb all of my resin. I had some air pockets, very few, but to be expected with those seed pods. I expected actually to have a lot more, and I was surprised I didn't. So it turned out good. And like I said, I'll do another video, a separate video on stabilizing. I don't know everything about stabilizing. I'm not really interested in getting the equipment because it is so expensive and time consuming. It's a process, but it stabilizing is convenient for certain projects where it just would make things much easier or even possible. So this is going to be the bottom of the pedestal foot. So I'm going to focus on getting it sanded because I'm not quite done shaping the rest of it yet. I still have to go through the tedious part of getting the bottom of the bowl to fit, or getting my piece to fit to the bottom of the bowl, I should say. So I'm sanding all the way through to 400. I also will put a link to in the description of where I get my branding iron, because that is a frequently asked question. Putting some sanding sealer on there. I did try to spray some new spray I got from Walmart. I'll put a picture of it here shortly. I just am horrible at spraying. So the first spray was great. The second one, I went too far. I ended up getting a lot of runs and had to knock that back. Sanded a little bit, and then used that green scrubby stuff to knock it back. Then I just added another coat of sanding sealer because I figured I'll put another whole coat later on the whole piece, hopefully. So I'm just removing my waste block, and now you're going to see me go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth with getting this foot to fit. And I guess with any custom fitting kind of piece, you tend to do that, and you just have to remind yourself to go slow, take a little bit at a time. now that I watch myself turning it, I thought, why didn't I just get some toothpaste and put it on? I know it sounds ridiculous, but I've used toothpaste a lot in trying to find out what parts are hitting and where, to hang picture frames and stuff on the wall, put toothpaste on the back where the hole will be, and then just push my, picture up against the wall and it'll leave a mark. And so that might be a tip and useful tip for other places in the house as well. But I thought, why didn't I use toothpaste on the bottom of that bowl to see where exactly it was hitting on my piece? I guess it was just laziness, not going inside and getting it, but instead I just chose to go back, forth. But there's probably several ways you can assist yourself with getting this fit right better, so it won't be so long. It was fine. It wasn't like it took days or anything, but I'm sure there was a lot of things I could have done that were shortcuts that I chose not to do. So you'll see me fitting the glass to the bottom several times, trying to get that fit just right, and I'm focusing on certain parts of the time. So I'm focusing on the depth, and then after I get the depth, then I'm focusing on the the sides of the foot, and then I'm focusing on how, once I get it all the way in, then I focus on how that glass bowl is going to be kind of held or captured. So that was the process I took in getting to that shape and that design. So now that I have the foot size, or the top of where the bowl is going to sit in, I should say, then I can start to really make this more proportional and take its real shape. So as I'm going here, I'm still not 100% sure of how I want to shape it. I'm kind of just stopping, looking at it, seeing what curves and form that I want to go for. And once I get to one spot and I'm like, oh, I don't like that, I'll take this down. And it's kind of a flow. It's not a determined shape. At least this point I had abandoned my drawing completely. So I chalk it up to, well, if it doesn't look that excellent, then I'll know I just need to work harder in this area to focus on what it is that I don't like about the shape, and then try to move on from there. I did have a few, like I said, I did have a few little air pockets and holes, and I did fill them with 5-minute epoxy. But when I went to go turn on the camera, I actually turned off the camera, and so I didn't record that portion. But that's okay. It's just filling little holes with epoxy that I use, the same coloring I used to color the resin in the first place. I cut a lot of the sanding out of my videos because it literally takes up 3/4 of the time. So I sand all the way to 400 grit on this piece because I was going to spray it with that same spray that I just posted a little bit ago. And so I wasn't concerned about getting all of those fine scratches out. It's another reason why I didn't use any abrasive paste, because I didn't want the wax to keep the spray from adhering. And so I sprayed the piece, and I ended up spraying too heavily, too much at a time, because the stuff I used is like a 3 times thickness. So it was way too thick for someone like me trying to get my sprays down to even use to begin with. So after about my second coat, I realized it wasn't going good, and I didn't want to have to go back and, take all that off with my tools. So I just knocked it back with some lacquer thinner, and then went back with my my little green thing like I used earlier, my little scrubby, and then put some more sanding sealer on it. And I decided to go ahead and use OB Shine Juice. The clear spray I put on it did, go in there really well and give a good coat, so I didn't have to worry about seeing those fine scratches that I didn't sand out to begin with. So it all worked out in the end. So I'm called Total Boat, and I asked them if their resin would hold and adhere to glass, and they said they don't know. It's, their products aren't really made for that particular purpose. So I was like, well, I guess it'll be a test dummy. The problem with this bowl is it had a concave in the very, very bottom, where the foot was, and I kept getting an air bubble. So I had to put the resin in the bottom of the bowl first and then flip. It kind of made a mess, but it all wiped up really easy, and I have one little dinky air bubble in the middle, and that was it. And I wasn't going to fool with it anymore and risk making even more of a mess, so I was completely satisfied with that one little bubble. So that is that. It's a pretty good sized bowl. I thank you all so much for watching my videos, and I pray that you have a wonderful and blessed weekend and a blessed next week. Take care.